Coming up on the Blerd Breakdown, I explain to you exactly why Kraven the Hunter only made $11 million after getting out of the movie at 1:30 in the morning. On top of that, there's a rumor that Sony might be selling the Spider-Man rights back to Marvel, a move that needs to happen yesterday. I also give you an update in a new Diddy or Didn't He on the Jay-Z lawsuit, which seems to be falling apart, as well as his friendship with Diddy apparently. It's time to stop playing with your cousins and go ahead and whip that Penix out. The Falcons are benching Kirk Cousins after a massive deal in the offseason. All that and more coming up right now. So let's get it.
What's going on, everybody? I am Winston Marshall, aka the Swaggy Blerd, and this is the Blerd Breakdown, a pop culture show for when you need to know, see what had happened was. Now, if this is your first time here, please be sure to hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you know when I'm dropping new content, and definitely throw a like on this video. All of that helps the algorithm. And be sure to get in the comments, man. Let me know what you think about all the stories that are going on today. Obviously, we're going to talk about that monstrosity that is Kraven. We're going to talk a little bit about the Jay-Z lawsuit and his ties with Diddy and if they exist or not, and so much more, as I mentioned earlier. But let's jump right into the first story. Kraven the Hunter. Okay, so it's about 1:30 in the morning. I just got home from watching Kraven the Hunter. This is obviously after the weekend that it's come out. I know you've already heard a million reviews about it before. One of the things you're probably also aware of, that it only made $11 million at the box office over the course of the weekend. And that is because it is not a very good movie. It's actually a very bad movie. I would say, as a matter of fact, I don't know why I'm doing this. I should be on the solo shot here. I would say it's one of those things where the beginning, there's a reason why Sony released the first 8 minutes of the film. The beginning is the best part of the movie. It's actually very solid to where when it started, I was like, oh, this movie is actually going to be pretty decent. I don't know what everybody's going on about it. And then the movie actually starts because it's essentially a cold open of what he's able to do. And from that point forward, it's just not good. Things don't make sense. Everything from, and this is going to be minor spoilers, Calypso being a lawyer and kind of throwing that in there and where that came from out of nowhere. The connections with other Spider-Man villains. Again, spoiler, you have Chameleon show up at one point. The Rhino is awful. I get they wanted to try and find their own way to kind of make it work, but there's a couple things wrong. I mean, Coy mentioned on Capes and Cowls about how at least the way that Kraven is fighting Rhino is very similar to the way that Spider-Man would. But A, I would rather see Spider-Man do it. And B, the thing about Rhino is supposed to be massive, like Hulk size. So hold on a second. Like, genuinely, looking up his stats, on like the Marvel Breakdown, like encyclopedia thing, like an official Marvel website, he's supposed to be 6'5", 710 pounds. In no way, shape, or form did he look like he was 6'5" in this. And in all honesty, he always looks more hulking than that. He looks even bigger than 6'5". Like, homie looks like he's Shaq size typically, but roided out like crazy, like an inhuman amount of roided out type situation. So like the Rhino was not intimidating or interesting. Russell Crowe, who I know was very upset that he wasn't in Gladiator 2, was wasting his time doing this instead. And like the thing is, like, Aaron Taylor Johnson did everything that he could with the role, and I give him credit for that, but it just wasn't a good movie. It just genuinely wasn't. He's just kind of muscling around the whole time, kind of walking around like this. Just literally that's what the whole of the movie was. So it's one of those things, man, where it's like, look, I understand that the point of this is that Sony was trying to go in there and make some money with these villains, but you gotta understand there are a few villains that can stand on their own. And when they do, it's because they have such an interesting foil to see. So like, to not even bring in Spider-Man ever in any of these, and we're going to talk about it in a minute because it's Sony is apparently about to sell, or is rumored to be considering to sell, the Spider-Man IP back to Marvel. Kraven is not interesting on his own to do that. He is in a side book or story if you've established him. And I think for any comic book fans, you know enough about Kraven, sure, but you have twisted so many things about it that it's not interesting. And most of the stories about Kraven that are interesting, yeah, they focus on him, but they focus on him effing with Spider-Man or somebody Spider-Man adjacent. Like, the best stories are the ones where those villains are taking on, you know, the main antagonist. They may be the main protagonist, excuse me. Now, they may be the focus. So, for example, you know, Kraven attacking Spider-Man, or there's a really great story where Deadpool has the Venom symbiote and Kraven's taking him on and actually kicking his ass until Deadpool gets out of it. Like, those are interesting, but just like nah, man, we're just going to have him, you know, doing his own thing, and he's kind of a hero, and he's going to fight the Rhino, one of Spider-Man's main villains. It would be different if it was like they were villains together and then, you know, you went too far type of. But no, this doesn't make any sense, and it wasn't good. It was actually very bad. It's one of my worst of the year. This just didn't need to happen, honestly, and I hate that there was a lot of wasted talent involved. Like, again, Aaron Taylor Johnson did everything he could with this. He's jacked out of his mind. Ariana DeBose looking fun as hell, like, you know, real smart wit when she is speaking and stuff like that. Just little cheesy lines here and there. I keep forgetting how caked up she is. My God. You know, everybody did the best they could with what was a terrible script that was clearly spent too much money on to make in the first place, and nobody really asked for it. And so I genuinely hope this is the end of the Spider-Man villain universe. Honestly, the Sony Spider-Man universe. Like, give me the rest of the Spider-Verse movies. I talked about this a little bit during the Karate Kid trailer reaction. And then let's move on. I don't need to do this anymore. That being said, it is very possible that it's over because Kraven the Hunter had a disastrous opening weekend in North America and the North American box office with a mere $11 million. There's no saving what could be the final chapter of the Sony's Spider-Man universe overseas either, because internationally it only grossed $15 million. The movie, which arguably features a far more popular lead character than either Morbius or Madam Web, promises to be Sony Pictures' biggest Marvel flop yet. Unsurprisingly, there are now rumblings online about the Spider-Man rights being sold back to Marvel Studios as the struggling studio cuts its losses. While only time will tell what happens there, things went from bad to worse for Kraven the Hunter yesterday. The movie only grossed $830,000, a massive 66.1% drop from Sunday, which takes its domestic cume to $11.8 million. For context, Wonder Woman 1984 was released in theaters and on HBO Max at the same time in the middle of the pandemic and still managed to make $1.8 million during its first Monday. Only 30% of theaters were open and most had 10% limited capacity. Simply put, there are disasters and then there's Kraven the Hunter. Sony Pictures is bound to have been left reeling by this worse than expected performance, and moviegoers have sent the studio a clear message. They don't want these films. Still, despite boasting only a 15% Rotten Tomato score from critics, the movie has a far fresher 73% from fans. I have no fucking idea why. It's not that the number most chose to pay attention to, though, and the current critics' consensus reads, claiming no trophies with its route story and shoddy special effects, Kraven the Hunter turns out to be a paper tiger. As we write this, and again, this was Josh Wilding, a comic book movie, Sony is expected to focus primarily on Spider-Man 4, Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse, and the TV series Spider-Noir. Moving forward, no further spin-offs are believed to be in active development after the plug was pulled on Bad Bunny's El Muerto. I mean, my review said everything. That said everything right there. It's not good. And even if fans are giving it a 73%, more fan like that's based, you know, percentages you always have to take into consideration against numbers. Considering there was only 11.8 is that what it was, $11.8 million spent in the US to see this movie. Yeah, I don't think that those 73 are that many people. Honestly, it sounds like 100 people went, and at most, and those 73 liked it, and then everybody else said, I'm just not gonna fucking go. It's not good. It's not a good movie. Honestly, save yourself. But let me know what you think down in the comments. I'm going to go on to another story, again, talking about the Spider-Man IP being sold. But let me know what you think about Kraven in the comments. Have you seen it? Do you plan on seeing it? What is your game plan with that? And let's go to this next one. Now, this is from Mark Cassidy, a comic book movie, but there is a rumor circulating that Sony Pictures is seriously considering selling Spider-Man back to Marvel Studios. Now, Spider-Man is arguably Marvel Comics' most iconic and recognizable character. and it's been off limits to Marvel Studios for many years until an unprecedented deal was struck with Sony Pictures. This agreement allowed both studios to share the wall crawler within the MCU, starting with 2016's Captain America Civil War, 2017's Spider-Man Homecoming, and then as part of the deal, Kevin Feige and former Sony Pictures chief Amy Pascal produced the Tom Holland-led Spider-Man films for Sony Pictures. And although it worked out very well for both parties, it did keep Holland's Peter Parker from any Sony projects that aren't officially part of the MCU. Well, we recently learned that the partnership never precluded Sony from using Spider-Man in its movies that didn't bear his name. But there was a feeling within the studio that audiences would not accept Holland's Spidey suddenly popping in a live-action film that wasn't a part of the MCU. There are almost certainly a few aspects of the deal we haven't been made aware of, but one thing is for sure. Sony's attempt to develop a Spider-Man spin-off franchise without Spider-Man has not paid off. Although the Venom trilogy was successful commercially, The Last Dance was the lowest grossing of these, but still performed pretty well. Morbius and Madam Web were not, and as we've talked about, it looks like Kraven the Hunter is destined to be the box office bomb status. Now, despite one report claiming that Kraven will be the final SSU movie, Deadline believes the studio is actually planning to forge ahead after a reset. However, they may be considering taking a drastic measure following the recent box office disappointment. According to Scooper, My Time to Shine, hello, Sony is now seriously considering selling the Spider-Man IP back to Marvel Studios. What would this mean for the character? Basically, it would allow Marvel to include Spider-Man in any future projects and develop solo Spidey movies featuring any and all of the hero's foes without any involvement from Sony Pictures. Now, despite the SSU's failings, this deal has been very lucrative for Sony, who stand to rake in after the upcoming Spider-Man 4 swings into theaters. With this in mind, we're not sure how much stock we would put into this rumor, but there's a chance the trades will soon weigh in with an update, so stay tuned. All right, on the one hand, I 100% understand for Sony, Spider-Man has been one of the most successful IPs that you've had. You've gotten an Oscar from Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, or Into the Spider-Verse, as well as a nomination for Across the Spider-Verse. You've grossed so much money from all of the Spider-Man films, especially No Way Home, based off of how that deal went and everything. Sony made a lot of money from that too, but the truth of the matter is they are tanking the IP into the ground by putting these subpar spin-off films that have nothing to do with Spider-Man. And the more you do that, it's actually going to lose its value. So if there was ever a time to do it where Spider-Man still has some street cred and Marvel would love to have their character back, it almost feels like cut, bait, and run. Get Spider-Man 4 done, get Spider-Man Noir done, get Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse done. Cut a deal that you can still be a part of like the video games, because the 2 Spider-Man games that came out for PlayStation or the 3 have been fantastic. And maybe you don't have exclusive rights in general for the character, but like you have your own thing that you can continue to do with it. Do all of that. Cut maybe a deal where you can still somehow produce TV shows or something. I don't know. But after that, man, you have got to let this go back to Marvel and let Feige and those boys over at the MCU, those boys and girls, play with the character the way it's supposed to be. Instead of all this nonsense of, oh, well, you can't have Kingpin, but you kind of can. And then you can have Spider-Man over here, but you can't really have a Venom, but you sort of have Venom. But then no using Kraven, but maybe you can use the Rhino. Like, it's just nonsense. It's genuine nonsense, and it is hurting the ability to tell really good stories with it. Sony's had their time to shine, and when they did a fantastic job. But I think it's just in the same way that, like, eventually you see a new executive producer come into a studio, a new studio head come in, things like that. It's time to move on, and I think Sony does need to let it go. And again, this is one of those situations where if you were, for any of you sports fans out there that watch the show, it's this idea of like, look, this person has made it very clear that they do not plan to re-sign with us, or they're on the decline right now. Like they're still good, but they're not who they were. So if we trade them now while they're kind of at their peak value, or while they're just starting to decline, we're going to get more out of it, versus if we wait until the season's over and they go, well, F you, and then they're out, then all of a sudden you really got nothing for it. And that is the thing that I think is going on. Set a deal that says, after we finish up these things, we have a right of refusal to maybe take it back. And if so, maybe there's a small monetary like penalty for it. but set it up that the sale goes through after you finish these last kind of 3 projects and let Marvel have it back, man, because y'all, this was bad. This was so bad, and I don't think anybody has faith that they can figure it out going forward. I really don't. And I'm just thinking about the possibilities if it was back in the Marvel playpen full time, but it is what it is, man. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think Sony should sell Spider-Man back to the MCU, back to Marvel Studios? Or do you think this is just a string of bad luck? They've done enough good stuff. Let them hold on to it. I want to know what you think down in the comments. And let's go to the next one. All right, y'all, it's time for another installment of the segment known here as Diddy or Didn't He. We're talking the Jay-Z lawsuit case again, and at this point, Jay-Z is fully ready to have this case completely dismissed. Now, this is coming from ABC News. Jay-Z's lawyer has doubled down on claims of his client's innocence on Monday while disputing the timeline behind a rape accusation that has been leveraged against the music industry titan. Alex Spiro, the lawyer representing Sean Jay-Z Carter as he faces a civil lawsuit alongside fellow music mogul Sean Diddy Combs, held a press conference briefing with hand-picked reporters in New York City on Monday. In that briefing, Spiro outlined what he says are inconsistencies in the timeline account of Jay-Z's accuser, who was 13 years old at the time of the alleged sexual assault. The plaintiff, who claims in her lawsuit Jay-Z and Sean Combs assaulted her at the after-party of the MTV Video Music Awards in 2000s, has acknowledged inconsistencies with her account. However, she has stood by her allegations. Obviously, Jay-Z did not rape a child, Spiro said. He added that he expects the case to be dismissed. If it's not, eventually this will all crumble because it can't possibly have happened mathematically, he said. You don't even need witnesses. They don't have any witnesses because this never happened, and you don't need witnesses because the time doesn't work. There's literally photographic evidence that proves that this could not have happened. Spiro said that according to the accuser's account, she arrived at the residence, mingled with several celebrities, had a drink, was sexually assaulted twice, fought with Sean Diddy Combs, and then left the residence naked in a 37-minute period. She had 37 minutes to possibly do this even under their account, okay, he said. And of course, the biggest problem, perhaps of all, is there's photographs putting Mr. Combs and Mr. Carter in different places, not in a White House during that 37 minutes. So when I tell you that it's not just that this story is a lie and that it's not true, it's provably, demonstrably false. This never happened. Spiro pointed out several other parts of the accuser's timeline that he says cannot be factual, asserting the following. The home where she says she was assaulted occurred 20 minutes from Radio City Music Hall. Spiro claims it does not exist, and Jay-Z was photographed at a VMAs after-party inside a club. Sean Combs and Jennifer Lopez were photographed at 2 commercial clubs after the VMAs, and Jennifer Lopez did an outfit change after the VMAs. The victim claimed she spoke with musician Benji Madden at the after-party. He was not there. He was on tour in the Midwest. The victim claims she watched the VMAs from a Jumbotron outside the awards. MTV did not have a permit for Jumbotrons in 2000, according to NYPD and a producer of the show. The victim claimed she approached limos outside of the VMAs, but the street was blocked off and there was an Eminem performance on the street. The victim claims her father picked her up from the gas station and drove her home. NBC News reported her father does not remember this and lived 5 hours away at the time. The victim claims a friend drove her to Manhattan after sneaking out of a window. It could not be corroborated, and the alleged friend is supposedly deceased. Spiro said Jay-Z is upset by the accusations levied against him in the lawsuit. He's upset that somebody would be allowed to do this. That would make a mockery of the system like this. He's upset that this distracts and dissuades real victims from coming forward. He's upset that his kids and his family have to deal with this, the attorney said. He added that Jay-Z knew Sean Combs professionally, but Mr. Carter has nothing to do with Mr. Combs' case or Mr. Combs. They knew each other professionally for a number of years, just like in all professions, people know each other at the musical awards, they support each other. In an emailed statement to the Associated Press on Monday, the lawyer representing the alleged victim, Tony Busby, said the woman had been referred to him by another law firm and vetted by 4 attorneys from his firm. Courts exist to resolve factual disputes, Busby said. Our client remains adamant about her claim. ABC News has reached out to Busby for a comment. Last month, Jay-Z attempted to have the woman's identity revealed or the suit dismissed. However, a judge ruled that she had sufficient cause to remain anonymous. Her case was originally filed in October against Sean Combs, aka Diddy. At the time, Jay-Z was only identified by the pseudonym Celebrity A. His identity was revealed when a civil lawsuit was brought against him in December. He doesn't know anything about the charges or allegations against him, Spiral continued. He has nothing to do with that case. Ooh, boy. All right, look, I told you, as Diddy or didn't he is, the point of it is to keep all of this at the forefront and to be able to talk about it. That's a lot of inconsistencies. That's a shit ton of inconsistencies. And I'm very curious how this goes. I did watch the NBC News interview. Apparently, this woman is in her late 30s, is autistic, and that was brought up as well and things like that. But the timeline and the photos and everything, this doesn't look like it makes any sense. And the one reason I really wanted to make sure that we specifically focus on this is that, again, I said that the main thing that needed to happen is we need to see a lot more evidence. We haven't even gotten to court yet, but a lot of this being presented already at the press conference obviously can be officially, presented in the civil lawsuit. It's wild to me that with all of this coming out, the mainstream media was very quick to throw Jay-Z out there and let him completely sink or swim as far as that goes and be like, yep, he's out here doing all the same things that Diddy was doing and blah, 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 blah. But now that this is kind of coming out, yes, this was reported on, but it has not been pushed in the news cycle in the same way. So you went out of your way, either in the mainstream media or on social media, to take a successful person and just destroy and tarnish the reputation. And specifically, I mentioned this in the last Diddy or Didn't He, a successful black man, and to drag him through the dirt. But then when you are presented with new evidence that's brought up for the case and new arguments for the case, they are not being reported on the same way. I have a massive problem with that. I have a huge fucking problem with that. Again, if Diddy, Jay-Z, R. Kelly, doesn't matter who it is, if they did the fucking crime, they need to be exposed out in the light and they need to be punished for it accordingly. But if they didn't, and right now there's a lot of evidence saying that Jay-Z didn't do this, specifically this, they need to be talking about it in the same form or fashion, because that's the thing that is completely dangerous. Again, it does potentially make other victims not want to come forward and things like that because people make a mockery of it and then people aren't listening. It also is then dangerous because now Jay-Z's name could be completely tarnished. Again, provided with what we've just learned so far, what has been presented so far, he appears to have not been a part of this. And so, again, you have dragged this man through the mud. You have disgraced him in front of his family, in front of fans, all that kind of stuff, and you're not going to report on it with the same amount of energy. That's insane. That's absolutely fucking insane, and it's super fucking disrespectful. I am of the mindset that you need to keep the same energy with all things. If you wanna talk shit, be ready to have that same energy when someone come and checks you on it. If you want to call someone out, have that same energy when whatever it is that you call them out for isn't a thing. Keep it a buck. You can apologize, and this is some of the things that you don't just apologize here. Like this is one of those things where like this is where you could see a countersuit happen. Not that Jay-Z I don't think would, maybe against Busby, but not against this young lady, just because I don't even think she has really any money, and I think it'd be more to send a message to Busby as far as that goes, and to be more careful about who he's potentially taking on that. Again, it's not over till it's over. We need to watch the lawsuit play out in court and whatnot. But again, based off of everything that's been presented at this particular moment, I just need the fucking news to keep the same energy, man. And that's again why I keep doing this segment, because that's fucked up. Nobody would want any of that to happen to themselves, to be accused of something that great. And then if you have enough evidence, you're presenting evidence for it, that nobody's listening to you, then they just heard the things that were slandered against you. That is completely effed up. So we need to watch how this whole thing plays out, but I want to know what you think in the comments, man. Do you think that there is sufficient coverage and maybe, it is what it is? Or do you agree that this is nonsense, that it felt like every news channel was ready to pop off and be like, oh, Jay-Z did this, but then quiet kind of follow-up reports like this didn't play nearly as much? Let me know what you think down in the comments. Let's go to the next one. Lil Wayne gives Kendrick Lamar the green light to go kill it at Super Bowl 59. Now, this is a TMZ report on this. Lil Wayne's ick over getting snubbed over Super Bowl 59 in New Orleans' hometown seems to have blown over. Wayne is now cheering on Kendrick Lamar to have a hell of a halftime show. On the Skip Bayless show, Skip Bayless made attempts to push Wayne over the edge on Monday, claiming to be baffled and angry there wouldn't be Young Money emblems inside Caesars Superdome come February. But Wayne said it's all G-O-O-D. I've spoke to him and I wish him all the best and I told him he better kill it, Wayne told Skip. For whatever reason, I believe it's over my head. I don't know why, period. Obviously, I believe that it's perfect. I don't know why. Joe Budden had heard rumblings. Wayne was ready to respond. We talked about this on a previous episode of Blerd Breakdown. That Wayne was ready to respond to Kendrick's GNX opener, Whacked Out Murals, where the PG Lang gang leader rapped, used to bump the Carter 3, I held my rolly chain proud. Irony, I think my hard work like Lil Wayne down. Wayne didn't give K-Dot any slack over the bars. I'll bet he's still not 100% with losing out on the top spot in his own city. The door is still open for Wayne to make a cameo appearance, and only time will tell if that will happen. Okay. So the only thing I really want to call out about this real quick, if you go and watch the interview on the Skip Bayless show, Wayne kept being like, oh, I haven't heard the bars. I haven't heard anything. That's my first time hearing it. I didn't hear that before. Yeah, that's all cat, bro. Come on, Wayne. Knowing, A, that you say that you're a fan of Kendrick, B, the fact that you were tweeting out, well, why are you playing with my name? I guarantee you had heard the lyrics before. You don't need to cap about it. You can just be like, yeah, man, I heard it at first, and maybe I just heard my name and I freaked out, which still seems weird to me because Wayne, being arguably the GOAT, gets bars. That's what he does for a living. But either way, don't cap and lie to us and try to be like, hey, man, I never heard none of that before, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't hear none of that, bro. But, like Kendrick, stay up. Like, it is what it is. But I'm glad to hear that he's over it. That's as it should have been in the first place. I don't think that it was that big of a deal considering. I know people that have been caping hardcore. It should have been Wayne and all these other rappers that said that, hey, when you understand how the Super Bowl halftime show works, and it is a full pitch, I've talked about this multiple times, it is a full pitch. The same way you pitch to get the Olympics to come to your country or / city or the World Cup or even the Super Bowl itself. You have to pitch yourself. Wayne's team did not pitch him. So I'm not going to feel bad for you if you didn't play by the rules in which the organization that would want your services, there are things that they're expecting that you didn't do. So it is what it is, man. But I'm happy to hear this, man. I didn't want to see Wayne and Kendrick get in a beef. Honestly, there was no reason to do that. And I hope that this opens the door for Wayne and other New Orleans like staples to be able to come out and be celebrated as well. Again, the Super Bowl has never focused on, we're going to bring so-and-so in because, it's this city. That was a one-time rare thing that happened where it was the first time the Super Bowl had been in Los Angeles for an extremely long time in the brand new SoFi Stadium. And it was it was in the middle of the pandemic. You needed something feel good, so it was a situation of, hey, Dre, do you want to do, like, Dre again had to go pitch this, and there was all the controversy on top of it where they weren't going to bring out, I want to say 50, and Eminem was like, I'm not performing if you don't. There was also something along the lines of they didn't want him to kneel or anything like that, but then M was essentially like, fuck you. Like, you know what I'm saying? There was a lot that had to go into it for that to happen in the first place. So, like, again, context matters. People want to immediately jump to conclusions, and I have a massive problem with that. I need you to take everything in consideration before you just jump out there, man, because that is how we end up in these stupid internet fights. That's how we end up being divisive about shit. Get to know more than just the fucking little sound bite that you got, because there's always more than the sound bite. Go hear the whole context before you pop off on that. But let me know what you think, man, down in the comments, and let's go to this next one. All right, y'all, so one of the things that I love to highlight on the channel is homies out here doing big things. I especially love highlighting, black creators that are putting out high quality art and content and stuff like that that's happening all over the place. And One of my absolute favorite collaborators is Robert Butler III, aka RB3. You might know him from the Schmodown, you might know him from SEN Live, all sorts of stuff from First Cut. Well, he's actually developing a brand new anthology series and he needs your help to get it made. So check this out.
Doesn't it feel like Hollywood keeps recycling the same stories, the same IP, the same franchises over and over again? Are you bored of the stale, cookie cutter, rinse and repeat formula that the studios keep feeding us? Well, consider contributing to my Indiegogo campaign, Urban Luxury. It's a 6-part anthology series that deals with the commodification of Black cultural representation. I was inspired to write this series because I used to work at one of those high-end cultural urban e-commerce companies that prided themselves on being part of the culture. But honestly, the culture that they're trying to sell us feels very different than the culture that I've experienced throughout my entire life. So if you're looking to support something that's original, fun, thought-provoking, and edgy, support Urban Luxury on our Indiegogo page. The clock is ticking, so we need your help right now.
So yeah, please go in the description. I will have a link to the Indiegogo there. Let's go and help RB3 get this made, man. It looks absolutely incredible. I'm super proud of him and everything that he does, and I'm excited to see what this series will look like. It's given me kind of like Black Mirror vibes a little bit, if you know what I'm saying. Like we don't know if it's gonna be like, kind of body horror or anything like that, or horror, but the same thing of really diving deep into what all of this is and how it's affecting people and stuff like that. So definitely check that out. Shout out to RB3 for doing this, man. Let's get back to the show. All right, man, this one is kind of sad if you haven't heard about it. Randy Moss has announced that he is battling cancer. I'm going to go with TMZ's coverage of this. He revealed he's battling cancer. The Minnesota Vikings legend announced the news on his Instagram page on Friday of last week, telling his 640,000 plus followers that he's been in the hospital for the last 6 days dealing with surgery related to the disease. Moss appeared on camera to give his fans the update, and he needed a cane to move in front of the lens. The 47-year-old was nonetheless in great spirits as he wore a gray and lavender and black Team Moss shirt that read, "Let's Moss Cancer." Randy shared the doctors recently discovered a cancerous mass in the bile duct right between the pancreas and the liver, after he noticed some discoloring in his urine. He stated he first had a procedure to deal with the issue on Thanksgiving before he went on to have a bigger surgery this week to remove the growth. They found it and got it, Moss said. Now, Randy wasn't at the U.S. Bank Stadium on Monday night for the Monday Night Football game, but his presence was still felt nonetheless as multiple stars paid tribute to him following his cancer battle reveal. Chris Carter and Jake Reed, Moss's former teammates in Minnesota, got the homages started just before the Vikings' primetime matchup against the Bears. As the Minnesota team captains went out for the ceremonial coin toss, Carter and Reed followed closely behind while holding up Moss's purple number 84 jersey up high. A short time later in the first quarter of the tilt, Justin Jefferson shouted out the sick Hall of Famer following a touchdown catch. He did a little dance in the end zone, found a camera, and screamed, "We love you, Randy, that's for you," and he held up a pair of heart hands. Plenty of fans in the stands, meanwhile, were seen in Moss jerseys, and to cap things off, the Vikes scored a 30-12 win for their former player. Randy clearly appreciated it all. He took to Twitter late on Monday evening to write, "Love you all, #Let's Moss Cancer." After days of speculation about his health status, Moss finally revealed that he is dealing with cancer, as I mentioned before. He seems confident he's on his way to 100%. He called himself a cancer survivor, but he did note he is still has to go through some chemo and radiation. Moss urged his fans to buy his merch, randymoss.com, to help the fight against cancer, before adding, "Thank you all for the thoughts and prayers." Yeah, man, this one's rough. 47 is so young, and this stuff is very serious. And, Randy's not the only one going through it from a celebrity side. That, like, obviously it sounds like he still has a good, he still has a good job at ESPN. I'm sure, he has made a decent amount of money over his life. But again, the merch, I think, is equally to try and help with whatever he has to deal with, but to just help fight cancer, period. And I think that's huge. I mean, it's sad to think that, like, James Vanderbeek is having to sell, merchandise in order to try, like, not just merchandise. He's selling, like, prized possessions, like props and stuff like that, in order to try and pay for his cancer treatment, which is crazy. And again, you want to talk about I'm not going to focus on this too much because there's more to talk about Randy, but if you want to talk about the healthcare system, there's no reason that this should be that difficult saving people's lives. It shouldn't be commoditized like this. Like, that's fucking ridiculous. You want to do something that's fun or things like that and like whatever. And I do think doctors and nurses should be well compensated. But this idea that we are putting people into bankruptcy or worse, or if they don't have it, then they can just die. That is insane, man. As far as everything that's going on with like me and my family right now, my sister's surgery, as I mentioned, was successful, but I found out about a day ago that she is likely going to have another surgery pretty soon. We weren't really expecting that. She's fine for the time being. She's still in a lot of pain. Yeah. So, it's going to be a rough kind of Christmas holiday. We don't know exactly when the date is going to be for the next procedure, but I should find out soon. And when I do, I'm probably going to have to take a little time off again, but I do just wanted to keep everybody in the loop. So I appreciate all the thoughts and prayers and meditations and the healing energy. Please keep sending that out there. And really appreciate and show love to your loved ones. If they're with you right now, do it right now. If, you're going to go home for the holidays, make sure you cherish every single moment because you genuinely never know. Yeah. Okay. Let's give me a second and then we'll do our last story. All right. Our last story, man. Kirk Cousins might be the greatest grifter in the NFL. He has now been benched for rookie quarterback Michael Penix Jr. According to ESPN, Michael Penix Jr. is now the new starting quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons, and Kirk Cousins is headed to the bench. Coach Raheem Morris announced Tuesday night. After reviews, we have made the decision that Michael Penix will be the Atlanta Falcons starting quarterback moving forward, Morris said in a statement released by the team. This is a football decision, and we are fully focused on preparing the team for Sunday's game against the New York Giants. The Falcons beat the Las Vegas Raiders 15-9 on Monday night to snap a 4-game losing streak, but Cousins was just 11 of 17 passing for 112 yards with a touchdown and an interception. He has 9 interceptions, just 1 touchdown pass in his past 5 games. Falcons signed Cousins, who was coming off a torn right Achilles that ended his 2023 season in Week 8, to a 4-year, $180 million contract in the offseason. About $100 million of that is guaranteed, though most of that money comes off the books by 2026. The Falcons will pay Cousins $62.5 million this season. Penix, 24, led the Washington Huskies to a national championship game last season before the Falcons selected him number 8 in April's NFL draft. He completed 65.4% of his passes with 36 touchdowns and 11 interceptions in his final year with the Huskies, and his 4,903 passing yards were the most in the nation. When the Falcons drafted Penix, Morris and general manager Terry Fontenot, made it clear that Cousins was a quarterback of the present, but Penix would be the quarterback of the future. Cousins was caught off guard by the selection of Penix after he was informed it was just a few minutes prior to the move. He texted Penix later that night, and the two forged a relationship this season. Cousins and Penix live on the same street in suburban Georgia and sometimes carpool to the team playing for road games. The Falcons host the 2-12 Giants on Sunday. At 7-7, Atlanta is still in the playoff hunt, though the 4-game losing streak sent the team plummeting from its first-place perch in the NFC South. Yeah, the reason why I was saying that Cousins is such a grifter, man, is in the same way that Romo is, and potentially at one point Dak, I hope not. Kirk Cousins has been paid a lot of money in 13 years in the NFL and really hasn't done anything with it, man. Like, he is at his peak, he was very, very talented, but really never did anything in the playoffs. And in this case in particular, this money that the Falcons decided to give him, which made no sense. You did not need to pay him this. You really didn't. And if this is what he was demanding, shit, man, go get a Sam Darnold to make that happen. Look what Sam Darnold's doing. He didn't deserve to get paid this kind of money coming off an Achilles injury, and it's already fallen apart. It is fully fallen apart at this point. So, I like Kirk Cousins in the sense that I watched the quarterback documentary on docuseries on Netflix, and I got to know more about him, and I actually genuinely like him as a person. But nah, man. There's no reason he should have been paid like this coming off of an Achilles injury. And so now it's Penix time, man. You know, I'm excited to see what the kid can do. I was kind of hoping that maybe save it for like the last week of the season and then start to move on. But, you know, a couple extra games is not going to hurt anything at all. I just wanted Penix to be able to sit behind, you know, a veteran quarterback that's done well for themselves to really learn a little bit more. But maybe he's ready. I hope it's because he's ready and less because we just don't have faith in Kirk anymore. Because what you don't want to do, and I've been saying this a lot, these young quarterbacks, very few of them are ready to just jump in and go. Bo Nix seems to be kind of an anomaly here, but most of them need some time to kind of learn and adjust. And those that sit behind are the ones that are, for the most part, the best in the game. Patrick Mahomes sitting behind Alex Smith for a little bit. I'm trying to think who else. Jordan Love sitting behind Aaron Rodgers for a little bit. Giving them that time to develop behind a quarterback that knows what they're doing allows them to flourish. Again, it's not an automatic rule for everybody, but I think you see more flameouts from young quarterbacks because they really aren't ready yet, but they're expected to go save an entire franchise. So it'll be interesting to see what Penix does in Atlanta. Do you think he's going to be good? Do you think this is it for Kirk Cousins? Let me know what you think down in the comments. And that's going to be the Blerd Breakdown. Thank you so much for watching the show. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. Hit that notification bell so you know when I'm dropping new content. Throw a like on this video. And again, get in the comments and talk about any and every one of these stories that are on here, man. I want to know what your thoughts are about Kraven. About Sony maybe selling, about the Jay-Z case, about Kirk Cousins and Penix, Randy Moss, Urban Luxury, all of that. Go and let me know what you're feeling and how you're thinking. I genuinely want to thank each and every one of you again for rocking with me, for being around, checking the show out. We're always trying to improve things around here, stories that you want to hear about. Don't hesitate. If you see a story that seems interesting to you, man, you know, I do read the comments. Throw stuff in the comments. I try and answer them as best I can. You can follow me on all the social platforms if you haven't already at the Swaggy Blerd. I am making that transition from Twitter to Blue Sky officially by the end of the year. So if you haven't gone over to Blue Sky to follow me, be sure to do that. And then you can tag me and stuff as you see it, man. If you see like, hey, this, that, and the other, I'd love for you to talk about in the Blerd Breakdown. Let me know. I would love to hear all that. I've got some other videos that I'm going to be shooting soon. Hopefully, I'm going to find some time this weekend or early next week. Again, a lot of this is going to be based on the surgery schedule because as the Christmas holiday goes, I want to make sure that you still have some content from me. A lot of it will really depend on where I'm at. I'm sorry, I'm trying not to get emotional again. But I'm going to do everything that I can, and at the very least, when we get into the new year, we're going to have a little bit more stricter schedule of when things are dropping so you know consistently when to be here and check stuff out, man. But again, thank each and every one of you for doing stuff. If you're in the LA area in 2025, on January 10th, I will be joining Ken Knapsack in a show at Flappers, the Yoo-Hoo Room. I'm going to be doing some stand-up, so come and check me and Ken out. It's going to be an awesome fucking time. Again, shout out to Ken for having me on the show. You can see me on Spill the Tequila later today. You can see me on Capes and Cows on Friday. And, you know, some other good stuff coming out. So with all that, man, got a much love for each and every one of you. Be sure to check out one of these other videos right here. And I will see y'all on the next one, fam. Peace.